Hello, this is Carrie Fell. Welcome to my studio. My inventory of Viking hats is getting low. So I was left with just these two in the store. Sunshine is kind of bright. Is that a better view? So my Viking hats are 100% wool that I've hand woven here. They are lined in linen fabric, and then there's a tablet woven trim. So I've woven the wool and I've woven the trim, and the linen is commercial. I make the visible seams sewn by hand, which is the best way to attach the tablet woven trim. And then we have this decorative stitching, which also is securing the cut edges of the wool in the inside between the layers so that it won't come apart. And I had just two left in my shop. There's a few more in the shop up on the Cabot Trail at Arts North, but this is all that I had left, so I started making some more. So these are the hats that I've made over the last week. And the fabric was already woven. The wool fabric in a twill pattern was already woven, so it meant cutting out the fabric and sewing everything together. The tablet weave was also woven ahead of time, so I just needed to find some that matched the hats. And then I started another batch, which are in various stages of being sewn. So here's one with the two parts not sewn together yet. And I'm at the stage where I like to choose the tablet woven trim. And I'm getting low on that too. Now some of this would work, but isn't very suitable for Viking themed items. For instance, this is a very popular pattern, but this is often called Kivrim, and it's more of a Turkish region pattern and more recent than Viking. So very nice, but I don't really want to put it on the hats because I do want my hats to be appropriate for Viking reenactors. Not all these patterns are Viking. I mean, this has this hammer trim, which is a modern pattern that has sort of a link to Viking times, so this may or may not be accepted by Viking societies. So anyways, I'm running a little low. In my shop online, I do have more trim here, but these are all entered into the shop and are for sale as trim. I'll put them on my hats if I need to, but I'd like to offer them for sale as is for now. This is quite a unique color of wool in here, and I just didn't have any trim that would match this very well. So let's make some. I started by digging through my wool. This is all worsted wool, not worsted weight, but worsted spun, which means it's a little smoother than a lot of wools. It doesn't full super well, but it weaves nicely and is less likely to stick in the warp as I manipulate it to create the sheds for weaving. What I did was I chose a light color, almost white, and a gray, and a black, sort of a charcoal black, which is over in the next room. I'll show that to you in a moment, so that I could do a three-toned neutral, because a neutral colored band will go with just about any color of hat. And with the white, gray, and black, it's a little on the cool side, so any hat that is woven with cool colors, it should look good. The next one I'll probably do with warm colors, some browns. but that will come next. So I will go over to the house, which is where I've brought my loom and the band that I'm working on, because the Olympics are on and I'm watching the sports that I've never watched any other time, non-stop in the living room while I weave. I'm also watching football, which is often called soccer, which is one of my favorite sports to watch. So that's on. And then when I've watched all those games, I watch, the beach volleyball and the canoeing and things. So here's my setup in front of the TV, which has temporarily shut off. And this is a loom that I created out of a 1x6 piece of wood. We've got cabinet handles on either end, and they're shaped differently for a reason. I'll explain that in a minute. My warp is spread out between, and here's the cards that I use to manipulate to weave. Now this is the band that I've created. There's the front side of it, and the back looks like that. And the gray hardly shows. It looks like a black and white band. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind for the next one I do. This is all the woven part here, the finished part. It's a 4-yard warp, and I'll measure it once it's off to see how much it is woven. Tablet weaving is a warp-faced weaving method. Very different from inkle weaving in that the threads are twisting around each other on each change of a shed. So that creates a slightly different pattern. It also creates a very tight weave and a unique look. So the band is just wrapped around this handle, and then I pinch it with these clips to keep the tension. So if the tension does loosen up a little bit, I can just undo the clips and pull it a little tighter and pinch it on again. This end is the unwoven warp, and it can be dealt with a number of ways. I often clip it down here as well, around and clip it, or it can be taken and wound in a figure 8 around these ends here. So that's why I like to have the ends like this. I don't like to have those stick-outy ends on this end because it's one more thing for the weft to catch on when I'm weaving. I don't usually have 2 clips, I just usually have one small one, but sometimes my weft will catch on those if I'm weaving down there. So the less things to catch on, the better. Once this gets too far away from me, where I am, it gets hard to weave, and then I advance it, and then I have to retie it on this end. So I have a simple pattern. I turn the cards. I'm turning them all together in this one. It's a much simpler pattern, one where I can go on autopilot and not lose my place. So I'm turning all the cards together, and that creates different sheds. If you zoom down in here, you'll be able to see how the sheds change as I turn the cards. You can see some threads going up and others going down, and that gives me a different shed than what I had the last time. So I'm in this particular pattern, I'm turning it forwards 7 times, and then I'm turning it backwards 7 times. And that's a good pattern to have when the ends are fixed like this, because it's called twist neutral, and there won't be a buildup of twist it just twists for 7 turns and then it untwists again when I go the opposite direction. So I have woven about an inch right here, and from the center of this dot to the center of the next one, I just wove an inch for you, and I have not timed how long it's taken to do all this, but it's a number of inches. So I'm going to finish weaving off this band, and then I'm going to warp up and do another one in the browns, so I'll have a cool and a warm neutral decorative band to put on my hats. Of course, this gets wet finished the same way I do my other weavings. I'll wash it in hot water and soap. It will shrink, tighten up, become a nice tight band, and I'll press it to get rid of the waves that you see there, and it'll be nice and flat and easy to sew onto the hats. My cards are cut from index card dividers. I find the plastic to be just the thickness and the weight that I like. They're not too thick, and they're lightweight, but they keep their shape, their stiffness. And I've just hole punched 4 little holes in them, and so far these are my favorite cards. I was using cardboard before, but I think I like these even better. The reason why they're different colors, well, they come in the package in all those colors, but this way too, I know that the 3 green ones are my border cards, and the yellow ones are the angled diamondy parts, and then that very center part there, that eye, that's those 2 red cards. And I don't have any markings on my cards. That's not needed for weaving. I can just tell where I am in the pattern by looking at the band. So here's the finished wool band. It's been washed and fulled a little bit and dried, and then I pressed it with a steam iron so it's smooth. And the back side has an interesting pattern too, but I'm going to be using the front. And this is enough for a few hats, so that's great. And the first hat I'm going to put it on is this one. I was having trouble finding something to match this color, and so I've gone for a neutral. The edges of the wool part of the hat are enclosed in the linen lining. I sewed the linen lining to the wool outer by hand with linen, just a running stitch. I tried a different stitch along this seam here this time, and again a running stitch to secure the raw edges of the wool. So I kind of like the look of that stitch there too, so I'll have to decide what I'm going to do in the future. But right now this band is going to complete this edge here. So I'll be attaching it here to cover the raw edge of the linen, and that will secure the edge. It'll be a nice decorative trim as well as covering all the raw edges. So I've secured the band here, and I've used the same color as the trim, which is what I'm going to be using to sew it on. And the stitches will show on the inside, which is okay because it's hand stitching. So it's nice and tight here, and then it'll get, when it comes around, it'll get secured again with another layer of stitches. But right now I just go 1 stitch at a time through the edge, don't have my good glasses on. And this is why it's okay to make the two borders of the band different, because one's the bottom border and one's the top border. So they don't have to be symmetrical from the center out of the band. It's consistent along the length, and to have the bottom edge of the trim be different than the top edge is a neat effect. So I'm going to do more bands like that where it's not necessarily symmetrical. The one I'm going to be warping up next is very different, so that's kind of cool. So I'm just going to complete the sewing here. I just am sewing the bottom edge right now, and because I need to get that lined up first, keep it a consistent edge here and make sure that it's positioned to cover the edge of the linen. So I'm going to sew all the way around the bottom until I'm back at the beginning again, and then I move up and I sew the top edge of the trim on. So here's the finished hat. I've got a diamond twill wool outer, a trim made out of tablet woven band of wool, visible stitches are hand sewn. Inside is linen. I think it turned out really well. A big shout out to my patrons who help support me as I create these videos. If you have any comments or suggestions, just leave them down below. I'd be happy to see what other things you'd be interested in seeing on this channel. This hat and others are available in my online shop. The address to that is also in the comments below. Thank you for watching.